Good day to you. This is Galactic. On the last day of February, over here you'll see our old friend the moon. I always like to put the moon up first so that we are reminded that when we're studying circular geometry and spherical geometry, we're studying the actual physical geometry of the universe. That is not true of Euclidean geometry. This has been our reference diagram thus far for the simple parts of a circle so that we could relate those parts together just so that we can catch up with what is known in basic geometry about the circle, which led us to a very interesting conclusion that it is incorrect to unitize the radius. So that is such a profound discovery that one would be tempted to ask, why did nobody ever think of this? Think of what? What did I think of that nobody ever thought of? Well, it's so remarkably simple that it may confound you, but I will simply state what I discovered that nobody else was able to discover. That when you look at this simple circle, there are two completely different places that you might put a 1. And 1 is a magic number. It is called the number of unity. It is called the multiplicative identity number, which means that it does not affect any multiplication operation. But you have to be cautious when you talk about division, because if you divide by 1, it doesn't change the result, although it does imply a change in dimensionality. It does not change the numeric result by dividing by 1. However, if you invert that, called the reciprocal of that fraction, and put the 1 on top, which is called the anti-commutative of the commutative, you have the commutative, which is x comes first and then comes y. But in anti-commutation, the y comes first and the x comes second. And if you're saying that x over 1 equals x, you're saying that 1 is the divisional identity number. But if you said that, you would be wrong. It is the multiplicative identity number because either x or y being 1, including the case in which they're both 1, the numeric value 1 will not change the outcome from the original input, such that if you multiply x by 1, you get x. If you divide x by 1, you get x, but division is multiplicatively non-commutative. It is multiplicatively non-commutative, which means that 1 has a different relationship in the system, which is called the space, which we're getting into. The number 1 is not exactly the same kind of identity number that 0 is for the additive identity. The additive identity is 0, and that is a 1 component number. If you switch from addition to multiplication, then for multiplication, 1 is the identity number. But in the case of addition, the identity number for the add function is also the identity number for the subtraction function, and that is called the additive inverse operator. It is called subtract. And the identity number for subtract is the same number as the identity number for add. Okay. Okay. That is so important to see that, because of the difference that occurs in multiplicative space, and that is a precision use of the word space. It's the correct use of the word space in geometry. You have additive space. That has an object called the straight line, and you have to say the word straight because it's a peculiar kind of line. What you're looking at up here is the natural form of the line. There is only one line in the universe. It is called a circle. That alone is a line. So the right way to define what is a line is by drawing a circle. And when you do that, that is completely different from a straight line. There is no correspondence between those two objects on the plane. But gee whiz, if I were adamant about saying that, and it is superpositional, it's both true and false at the same time. That is the infuriating aspect of superpositional logic, which the universe uses. It uses superpositional logic from our frame of reference. Okay. So when you switch from the Euclidean straight line, which does not define the plane, you need two straight lines to define the plane, because the plane has two and only two linear dimensions if you observe the miraculous, absolutely breathtaking, confounding, awesome, magical fact that the way we see a plane, the two lines that parameterize it are at a right angle. That's called orthogonality, sometimes called perpendicularity. That those two lines are not parallel. They are not parallel. And also, they don't intersect normally. If two lines are not parallel, it can be proved that on the plane, they only intersect at one point. But when they do intersect, they make four quadrants that are balanced, such that these two and these two will match. But these two and these two will not match. Listen fucking carefully. When you have two lines on a plane, they either are parallel or they're not. Those are the only two possibilities. They are either parallel or they're not parallel. And there's no such thing as parallel. And therefore, any two lines drawn on a plane intersect at precisely one point. But there is one more and only one more magical, inexplicably magical and miraculous aspect that two lines can have on the plane. If you start with two overlapping lines, that means they're parallel and they're identical. So that would be two superposed straight lines. When you take one of the two lines and rotate it off of the other line, you have to choose a direction. But once you choose a direction, the opposite direction will occur on the other side of the line. So that as one line rotates away from parallelity, if they're overlapping, so that they are said to be the same line, but now you're saying there are two in the same line space, that you're just saying there are two lines, and one of them is going to remain static, and the other one will do a quantum jump. It will make a quantum jump off of parallelity. If you rotate that pi degrees, if you rotate that pi degrees, the valence inverts, so that the plus and the minus numbers switch places, and now they're anti-parallel. Anti-parallel. If you keep going and complete one full revolution of 2 pi, called angular units, if you rotate the circle 360 degrees, you achieve symmetry. And that symmetry defines circular space. The rotation of one line with respect to its identical parallel line. If one of those lines rotates one full circuit called 1, if that line executes a circular one rotation, that's the number 1. That's the number 1. And so that circle has the value 1 as its symmetry number. All right. That is the correct way to begin to parameterize the plane, which means to put numbers onto the plane. We don't want X and Y. We cannot any longer use X and Y. The reason is, when you linearize the plane with two ortho numbers, now Y is orthogonal to X. That is a very specific relationship called a right angle. A right angle. And now you know what that means. It is the only angle that exists by which you can place numbers onto the plane if you insist on using linear numbers. You will need a number for the horizontal aspect, and you need exactly one other number, which must have an exact relationship to the horizontal quantity. That is called the vertical quantity, which is polaric in both cases. It's a plus-minus relationship between the numbers on one side of the Archimedean and on the other side of the Archimedean. And I know that you have memorized the definition of the Archimedean of a space. So it's very, very good that you know that, because you would be swamped right now. You would have no clue at all what I'm talking about, why I'm talking at all, where this is going. You would be lost if you did not know what I mean when I say Archimedean. So thank goodness that you've done your studies with me so that you are an expert on what I just said. Thank you so much for paying such close attention, because now it's going to pay off. Now you're going to get the jackpot. You've been hitting all the coin slots. You've been losing all your nickels. Your purse is getting empty. But now you just take out, God, your $100 gold doubloon coin and just take one shot before you drive off in your jalopy and just drive off a butte and kill yourself. You take your last $100 doubloon and you shove it in the clown's mouth and you pull the lever, and out comes infinite wealth. All of your patience will pay off now that you paid attention to the basics, because now you're going to witness for yourself the greatest discovery in the history of mathematics or physics. I will now reveal to you the solution to the unified field paradox, the unification of gravity with electrodynamics. This will also unify quantum mechanics at all levels with electrodynamics and everything we know about physics out to the astronomic, the cosmologic levels, the astrophysical level, everything in the universe. We will correct the Big Bang and get it right. We will solve the cosmological constant controversy. We will define what dark matter is. It is going to blow your effing mind, because it's so simple. Because it's a direct insight with a huge moral lesson. Don't be so proud of yourself that you know mathematics, and people like me and my listeners will never know mathematics the way you goddamned inbred bastards were unnaturally selected by artificial means, such as you've been selected out as the new brainiacs because you have a recessive phenotypical gift for understanding mathematics. All of you mathematicians are freaks. And all the stereotypes about you are true. You're nerds. You're geeks. You're infuriating. And you have too big an opinion of yourselves. I am now going to blow your little fucking game out of the water, because you have been using the incorrect parameterization of the plane. Your numbers have screwed you. What you prided yourself on, because the government pays you to be a mathematical know-it-all. Well, you're out of control. Your whole tribe. and that's 20 minutes. Thank you for tuning in. In the next video, we are going to have a jump-off point whereby we are not going to return to the histrionics that you just witnessed. The Archimedean, about which you are so curious now because you don't have any fucking idea what I'm talking about. The Archimedean is the balance of a space. And there is a numeric Archimedean and there is a geometric Archimedean for any space. How many spaces are there? I just taught you that. There are two spaces that overlap. One uses extrinsic geometry, the mathematics of the grid, with the wonderful Pythagorean theorem. That's the operator in 2D space. Is x plus y equals z. That means that to solve for z, which is the hypotenuse, which is how you metricize the space, you have to take the inverse square function. That is called the square root. I'm just going to ask you one question, then I am going to complete my definition of the Archimedean so that you understand it. And it will be up to you to do your homework if you think you should. Can you, right now, using any tools such as pencil and paper, whiteboard, or anything else, or perhaps even in your head, can you perform a square root? Have you ever tried? Do you just rely on your calculator to take a square root? If you had to, could you describe what your calculator is doing in order to get a square root, which is the only way to compute the Einstein field equation? You must be able to take a square root. Can you? I would bet any amount of money that you can't. And there is a profound reason for why you hate that subject. Wasn't it jammed down your throat in grade school? X squared plus y squared equals the hypotenuse squared. And what came after that, children? Sine and cosine. So that now it's sine squared plus cosine squared equals fuck all knows what. And that's how you do all mathematics. All mathematics is based on that mistake, that you are stuck with Pythagoras, who was a caveman. A caveman. Archimedes was not. And Archimedes invented the calculus. Newton did not invent the calculus. Leibniz certainly did not invent the calculus. If anybody invented calculus, it would be two people. The first man to discover the calculus was Archimedes. The second man to discover the calculus was Albert Einstein. We'll go into that in a future video so that you can be apprised of the details supporting what I just said. But Newton fucked us. He really dealt us a death blow because calculus is passé. I have solved for the calculus. Although a case could be made, and I'm the one who made the case, you do need to be able to take one derivative. To do what? What is so critical about taking that one derivative? You do need to get the exact rate of a circle. And to do that, you can use the simplest form of calculus to derive from circular space the straight line. And so that is the absolute function of the calculus. It only has one true purpose. Every other use of the calculus in those stacks and stacks of books that are so unreadable, they should all be burned. All the calculus books ever written should be heaped up into a giant pile and burned. Because there is only one reason why the calculus relationship exists. It is a very specific operator to make a transdimensional transform. A transdimensional transform. And I used the calculus in my proof sequence called the bootstrap sequence and the antipodal theorem, both of which I discovered, that transforms Euclidean space into computable space. And your proud mathematicians are using kindergarten blocks and trying to shove those blocks into round and spherical holes. And they've never realized that they're literally using cubes to solve spherical geometry problems. And that's called trigonometry, the greatest curse that has ever descended upon the lonely, sinful, shitty race of humans. Keep the faith. There are good men, and I am always surprised to find this out. It's very important to maintain a connection, however you manage to do it, however you manage to hold down your vomit as you just want to vomit yourself to death, to do anything in religion. But if you stay away from it too long, you'll forget that there are such things as real men, real heroes, good men. They still exist. Welcome to Anagalactic. Keep looking up. The Archimedean is the reference frame of the space that you choose. We'll be right back. Thank you.